Good afternoon. My name is Borkon, I'm your host, and I'm pleased you joined me today. Wait, what? That's not how we do things here. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm Borkon. Glad to have you here. Welcome back. And yes, this is the thing we've been preparing with this to-do list and very, very many other things. It is the world tour of my world. Oh, and I need to put on my armor, of course. Yes, it is gonna be eclectic. It's not gonna be very super prepared. I'm just gonna go through things, show you all the stuff I have made here, all the progress, all the, well, not all the failures, because many of the failures have been fixed, all the work in progress, all the things that need to be fixed haven't been finished, some future plans. We have a lot to go through, so let's start with the most obvious one. There is a lot of scaffolding here, but a fantastic Salandora on my Discord and who was also on the stream that I did after last episode, made a tweakaroo setting or toggle that makes, wait for it, invisible scaffolding. Yes, I didn't have to dismantle the scaffolding to do that. But we're not going to talk about scaffolding today. I just wanted to show that off because it's a fantastic feature. Hopefully it's going to be merged into Tweakaroo at some time soon. It is an amazing feature and I really like it. And I also wanted to show off that feature just to give you a glimpse of that this is not a finished project, this is not a final state of the base and my world, that there is so much more that needs to be done, and that's why the scaffolding is there, but it's not. Oh, I still love that feature. So let's start here. I'm gonna show you various things about my world, what I've done, and maybe even brag a little bit, because there are some big things that we have done, like my main base. So this is my main base. The biggest feature of it is just this massive giant sphere of glass, and the diameter of this sphere is 128 blocks. That's mostly by accident, actually. I wasn't going for exactly 128, even though it is a very convenient number. But in this base, of course, we have still a lot of space. There are many more floors that I want to add. But the most important part is, of course, the storage system. Everybody needs to have a storage system. I have a multi-sorting system, which means that it automatically sorts all my junk, basically, and with various categories. This is like quartz category, blackstone, wood, nether stuff, redstone, iron items, etc. And it sorts everything automatically. I just throw things into this chest. I could throw shulker boxes, and the shulker boxes would get automatically unloaded, sorted, sent into the system, and it works just great. Well, it has some bugs, it has some infrastructure that needs to support it, but we'll talk about that later. Of course, there's also unsortable items, and on this server that I'm running this on, I also have the data pack that enables mob head drops, and this is the early version that also contains hermit heads for some reason. I don't know, I bought a few, don't know why, but mostly I'm just collecting heads. Don't know what I'm gonna do with them, but I have them. The most annoying heads to get ever were the slime heads. We'll talk about that in a while. My ultimate transport system in my base is a bubble vator behind honey, or a honeyvator that some people call it. On my second level here, I have my automatic rocket factory. And yep, this server is not fully completely vanilla. I'm using the carpet mod and a few non-vanilla features from the carpet mod, and one of the features I'm using is dropper auto-crafting, because I wanted to spend more time making videos and less time crafting items, and this machine automatically makes my rockets. So You can see rockets are being made. We could even hear the crafting table make the rockets for me. I insert sugarcane here, I insert gunpowder here. They're kind of empty, so I probably need to fill this up, but everything gets automatically crafted. No buttons need to be pushed. It works perfectly. On this level, we also have the super smelter. Well, it's a kind of okay smelter. It's not very super. It's not that massive, but it's big enough for my needs. I have plans for a bigger one, but you can't build everything in one day. Well, at least Rome wasn't built in one day, and neither was my base. On this level, we also have the infrastructure for the multi-item sorter, so this is the configuration for which items go where, but it's not particularly interesting, so let's leave that. We can go one more level up, and this is my color area, where I have some 2 high flower farms, some cocoa bead farm in case I ever need brown colors, and generally I just store most of my dyes here. It's relatively empty right now because I've been using a lot of dyes recently, but this is where I usually store all my dyes. I also have maps of how this area has been evolving over time, but we'll get to this in a while. And then at the top level, we're coming to my first big failure of a project. I tried to design my own potion brewing systems, and while they kind of work, they don't work particularly well, so I have for now abandoned this project, but will definitely come back to it in the future when I have a better design. And the same thing with the Neverwort farm. It's not a very exciting one, but like I said, this base wasn't built in one day. The base itself stands on a very strange pedestal of 4 tentacle legs, and this is the work in progress I was talking about earlier with the scaffolding that is there right now. Well, it isn't, but I can click a button and now we have the scaffolding, and it isn't. And these tentacles need to start enveloping the whole base, and it's still work in progress. We are currently on a mushroom island. It might not appear that it is, but it is. And this is a feature of this world that I spent a lot of time on to get right. I evaluated 20 billion different seeds. I wrote the program to do that for me. And I wanted to find the biggest possible mushroom island I could find, with some other features as well. And this wasn't the biggest one I found, but this was the biggest one that, well, worked well enough for me. This one was within top 10 biggest I could find, and it had, and I'm saying had, around 120,000 blocks of mycelium. As you can see, there is no blocks of mycelium left, at least no visible ones. And I know this because there is exactly 160 blocks of mycelium left on this entire island, and they are hiding somewhere underground. From 120,000 down to 160, everything got converted into grass. Well, I kind of helped quite a lot actually. And we finished the process of converting the island to grass in my previous episode. So this counter is one of the very non-vanilla things that I have in my world. It is 5 7-segment displays, which are perfectly normal redstone, but they are powered by command blocks, and the command blocks are actually running a script in the programming language of the carpet mod, Scarpet, and that is one feature I couldn't really figure out how to do in much more vanilla way, so this is powering the counter here that counts the blocks of mycelium left on the island. The structure here is a hostile mob farm, and you might wonder how in the world I can have a hostile mob farm in the middle of a mushroom island, and that is because this little pond here, that is nicely lit up, by the way, with sea pickles. I can't really show it now because it's day, but we will have some nighttime shots of this island. It's nicely lit up by sea pickles, and this is ocean, so the entire hostile mob farm is actually over ocean. But the hostile mob farm is currently disabled and will not be re-enabled on this island because I am fighting against lag in my base and I don't want it here, and it's not particularly necessary either. I have other sources of gunpowder, I have other sources of string, and I have other sources of bone. But I'm keeping the hostile mob farm around because I have gotten used to it being here, and well, it doesn't look too awful. Other farms I have in this area is, of course, everybody needs an iron farm, so we do have an iron farm. It's my design, very, very simple. Nothing really special going on here. It has 2 villager pods and 1 zombie that gets lifted by a piston to scare the zombies at a very specific rate. Usually 2 iron golems spawn, but sometimes we're not that lucky. And like I mentioned with this thing here, I've been trying to get rid of the little bit laggier passive farms that were just running all the time, and most of the things that remain on this island, or at least in the vicinity of the base, are farms that I have to run manually just once in a while. One of the exceptions, though, is my fantastic sugarcane farm, since I'm using a lot of rockets. Because I fly a lot, I'm using a lot of sugarcane for my rocket factory, and I let this thing run all the time. When my storage for sugarcane fills up, I just compost it, and it's just a convenient source of bone meal I have in my base, although my main source of bone meal, we're gonna see that later. And this is a farm designed around my own concept of a tethered flying machine. It is unload safe. And yes, it is a flying machine-based farm that is actually unload safe. I've been unloading and reloading this thing so many times, I can relatively confidently say that it is unload safe. It has gone through a few upgrade cycles to fix bugs that were making it actually not unload safe, and the biggest issue was the clock, but now I have a new clock design here and it works perfectly. And even in the case when it breaks, it is self-repairing. I will definitely link to a video about this machine which explains what fixes have been done. And as you might have noticed, every time I talk about a contraption or a machine or something I built, I have an iCard trying to link to the episode where I did that. This used to be my melon and pumpkin farm that was fully automatic, but it's one of the farms I have disabled so it wouldn't cause lag, because this one was actually quite laggy despite being relatively small. It was very productive, but I now have a different pumpkin farm and I don't have a melon farm, and I don't think I'm gonna need melons, and if I need melons, I will figure something out later. This farm is completely disabled. This is my blast chamber, my own design as well. Currently, it only is used for generating cobblestone, and it's quite slow at generating cobblestone. There are much better cobblestone generators if I would need a large amount of cobblestone, and I will definitely build one at some point in the future. But right now, I'm mostly using this for converting concrete powder into concrete. This thing over here is a rather, I almost want to say failed. It's not completely failed, but it's not a very great bamboo farm, where I tried to do a slightly different design without too much testing, just wanted to see if it would work. It's not particularly good. It has huge losses. I probably need to put in more time to figure out if this concept can work at all. Right now, it loses about half of the bamboo that is growing here. So it works like this. I enable it. And the pistons with the honey break it, and then water flows from above and tries to pick up the bamboo. I believe we can reduce the losses if I get better timing between the water flowing and the bamboo falling, but a lot of the bamboo will get stuck, as you can see. In between here, there is a lot of losses. So this is not a great machine, but I really like to just try new concepts, maybe if I can find something that works. And if it doesn't, well, I still have bamboo. This is enough to create about half a shulker box of scaffolding per harvest, and that's why I needed it, because I'm using a lot of scaffolding sometimes. The thing over here is a villager zombificator and never sender. So I have a mob switch in my nether. I actually don't have an overworld mob switch yet, but I have a mob switch in the nether, and this contraption was used to... This is a villager breeder, and this is a villager holding cell, so I could AFK here, come in the morning and have maybe 40-50 villagers in this pod and zombify all of them and send them into the nether. It's a very fast process for zombifying the villagers, mostly thanks to this guy here, who has a trident, and zombifying villagers with a drowned with a trident is much faster than doing it with a zombie with an axe, or however is the standard method of doing it. Currently this contraption is not strictly necessary and I might tear it down, but I might also reuse it to build an overworld mob switch somewhere relatively close here. I haven't really designed an overworld mob switch yet, I haven't done the planning for it, so I don't know exactly where I would place it, but it is possible that I will place an overworld mob switch somewhere in the ocean here. Right now the mob switch is on. Unfortunately, the button to turn it on is in a quite awkward place, and I think I will need to redesign this bit of it to have the on-off switch in the nether rather than here. But right now the on-off switch is here and this beam shouldn't be blinking. This is a bug in the system. Like I said, there are bugs, there are problems, there are still things that need to be solved. The mob switch is working fine. The bug is actually in the mechanism that is changing the color of the beam. And let's go down here. Somehow, I'm actually not sure if it's possible anymore, or if I will die if I try. But let's go down here and see how this thing works, because this is my own design for a chunk loader. And I just realized that I can walk down here, because there is a scaffolding, it's just invisible. Not gonna make it visible, just trust me, you can see the hitboxes of the scaffolding when I'm climbing down. So this contraption down here is the chunk loader, my own design. I even have a guide about how to make this. It's a pretty fun design. It is using minecarts with furnaces, which I think is one of the few legitimate uses of minecarts with furnaces that I've seen. And yes, I just realized that there is a scaffolding here. We will have to do this. Now the scaffolding is visible, and here was the scaffolding I climbed down. But yeah, so a minecart is dropped into a portal once every about 12 seconds. It has to be at most 15 seconds, but I have a little bit shorter timer just to be safe. The minecarts go to the other side where there is a very similar contraption like this. It comes back, comes to this magical device that bounces it up. It flies through the scaffolding, lands on the rails, and goes back to the minecart storage. I have a guide that explains how this works. I just wanted to show it off because I like this mechanism and it's been very reliable. And rather than going back up here, let's go through this corridor. Because this corridor leads us to my original branch mine, which I first used to get all the resources in the beginning before I had anything else, but it also leads to a place where I've been doing some beacon mining. There is a tunnel here which we're gonna explore in a minute, but I also wanted to show this part. The part here is right under the middle of my base, and there is another chunk loader, exactly the same as the one for the mob switch. And this chunk loader is used to ensure that my overworld is loaded so that certain contraptions that are in the spawn chunks don't break. Because unfortunately spawn chunks don't behave exactly the way we probably would want them to behave. And my sorting system and my blast chamber will break if the overworld is not loaded fully because nobody is in the overworld. The chunk loader solves this. But what I actually wanted to show is this tunnel, because this is the original tunnel where I introduced the tunnel bore. So this was the original first tunnel bore. It's been, well, it's not been disarmed, but I have removed the ancient debris from it because I needed the ancient debris for something else. But this was the first test of the tunnel bore in a survival world where I made this, I think, I don't know, 200 blocks or something like that. I was just testing how many diamonds I would get in an hour, and yeah, it was a decent tunnel. It wasn't the best method to mine, but it was definitely the most fun. I haven't needed diamonds since then, really, because I'm getting most of my diamonds from end raiding and other chests, so it's not strictly necessary for me to run a tunnel bore. But sometime in the future I want to build a massive tunnel bore just to see how a massive tunnel bore would behave, because this one is just a 2-barrel one. But this was in the video where I introduced the tunnel bore the first time. It wasn't in the guide, it was actually in my series here, because I usually try to introduce new machines and ideas and designs and farms in this series and not in the technical videos where I more explain how they work. And on the other side from that tunnel we have this tunnel, and this tunnel was just me experimenting with trying to figure out how to efficiently build tunnels before I started my Nether tunnel project. And this tunnel just leads to a Guardian farm. It's completely unnecessary, I don't need to go this way, I have a portal that leads there. I have a way to get here from the upper part of the Guardian farm, but we also have the tunnel that leads here, and this is the Guardian farm. Well, this is the bottom part, the loot handling system of the Guardian farm. And like I said, I have autocrafting in my worlds, and this system has 2 autocrafters because that is necessary for handling all the loot from the Guardian farm. And it is making sea lanterns, and if you haven't seen this before, you will soon see why I needed that many sea lanterns. But let's have a peek at the Guardian farm first. Oh, another scaffolding. I keep running into scaffoldings. We can fly out here, and we can go to my AFK spot, and it's night, which is very nice because this place looks better at night than at day. Over there is my Mushroom Island, so as you can see, the Ocean Temple was very close. This is the AFK spot, and let me introduce you to my warning signs. I like making warning signs. This one is a little bit silly one, only applies to the Guardian farm, but if you've ever worked with Guardians, you understand what this means. Anyway, this is the Guardian farm. It is based on the design that Iskall85 did in Hermitcraft Season 6. I have modified it slightly, actually quite a lot, and it was a recent modification. Earlier I used pretty much the exact same design he was using, but since I don't have a manual mode for this farm, I'm never killing the Guardians manually, I just let them fall. I modified it, and that speeded it up quite a lot. It's not the most efficient Guardian farm design, I know this, but I like it, it looks good, and it was more fun to actually drain the monument than to leave the water in and build huge portals in here. I like it, it's fun. And it's very productive. It has produced over 80 shulker boxes of sea lanterns that I've used, so it's good enough for my needs. Coming back to the island, we find this farm, and you might notice that it is different. The building is different than other buildings. I'll get into the buildings in a minute. This was one of the first farms I actually built, and it's a strange one, because why would anyone need a sea pickle farm? It doesn't actually have any loot pickup system because it is so productive. It generates 60,000, if I remember correctly, 60,000 sea pickles per hour. It would require a way too big sorting system to handle, so I just pick up the sea pickles like this. It was actually initially connected to my stuffware duct. I call this the stuffware duct. This was an initial idea I had that I'm kind of not really working on anymore. And the stuffware duct was an early idea I had to connect all the various farms on the island to a central storage system, but I have abandoned it because it was causing too much lag in the base. So right now it's only used for the iron farm and the sugarcane farm. All the other farms that were connected to this ones have been disconnected. And the sea pickle farm was originally connected to this thing, but I disconnected it because it was just overflowing the loot system when I ran it. So right now I just pick up the sea pickles manually. And there is not really that much need for sea pickles unless you light up the whole little pool like this in here. And I have a plan that maybe sometime in the future, maybe on a live stream or when I'm bored and have nothing better to do, I will light up the entire shore around the island, because why not? Sounds like a fun thing to do. Maybe it won't be, but could look good. We'll see. We'll try. This thing here is my honey farm. This is also using autocrafting. This is a relatively complex autocrafting machine, because if you've ever done any work on autocrafting, you will know that making honey blocks is really, really hard for various reasons. My own design for a honey autocrafter, it works relatively great. And the honey farm is, I would call it productive enough, but it could be much, much bigger. I have a plan for maybe building a new honey farm somewhere else. It wouldn't be here, it will probably be in the Nether, but I have not thought about this for a long time. For now, this is good enough, and I'm actually seeing that I kind of need to empty the storage system here. As you can see down here, I have tried to connect the farms a little bit with paths on the ground like this, just to make this area look a little bit more lived in and interesting. And this is one of my earlier projects that actually was even before the paths and before this bridge, and it was a tunnel here. I just realized this was, I think, even before I had wings, that I was spending so much time going between this area and the area where I was doing some work on that side, that I made a tunnel. And I think it looks good. And it's lit up by sea pickles, because how else would you light it up? That's the only way to light it up. And this also contains a portal up to the Nether roof. We'll get to the Nether soon. And also one portal down to the Nether basement, which is not where I'm doing anything. This is a very old tunnel, but it links to, among other things, the Nether side of the chunk loaders. And on this side, we might be able to find an early attempt of making a fast transport system in the Nether, which was a complete flop because running on soul sand is way too slow. This connects to my blaze farm. We'll get to that in a while. And it takes 6 minutes to run. It's unacceptable, and that's why I designed a completely different system for moving around in Nether. The various tunnels here is where I have been mining for ancient debris, and I have tried various methods for mining for ancient debris. Some with TNT, where I was clearing the lava, some with bed mining, which is probably here where there are fires. Oh yes, this was done with bed mining. A very, very long tunnel for bed mining. Here I did TNT without clearing lava. Just various methods to try to figure out which one is the best. And I must say that even though bed mining is probably slightly more efficient than TNT mining is just way more fun. And just drink a few fire protection potions and just fly through the lava. It is fine, it works great, and I have lots of ancient debris. I want more ancient debris. I eventually probably want to build a netherite beacon, so I will try to experiment with yet another method of mining for ancient debris, and I might even try to build a tunnel bore in the nether. But like I said, this is not my main nether area, and we'll get to the nether area soon enough. Since I'm spending so much time on this island working on the various projects, I end up with lots of skeleton horses. I don't know why. Well, I know that it has something to do with lightning, and I have also a lot of brown mushrooms, which I've kept. I have gotten rid of all the red mushrooms because, well, they were causing lag. I'm trying to keep this area relatively performant, and when I'm using the tools I have in the carpet mod to figure out what's causing lag, mushrooms were actually quite high up there, so I got rid of them. At the other end of this tunnel was my original area where I was living before I started building the base, and yeah, it's a standard starter area. Most of the sheep are gone because they were also causing lag. I think the chickens might still be a problem and I might need to get rid of them. Pumpkins, melons, wheat and carrots, the usual. And also a hidden entrance to my mining area. This thing here is my villager trading hall. I have a bit of a hatred for villagers, don't really like working with them. I need to design a different villager hall with many more traders, but then it will not be as close to my base because villagers cause some lag and I want to be safe. Here we can also see another example of a warning sign that I'm spreading all around my world. Oh, and by the way, here is yet another one. This is my emergency flight box. If I ever get stranded anywhere on this island without an elytra and rockets, I can, well, in case of flight emergency, break glass. Break the glass and my problem will be solved. And yes, I know it would make much more sense to put an ender chest there because I have everything I need in the ender chest, but it wouldn't be as fun. This just contains an elytra and some rockets. The villager trading hall is pretty standard. It contains a breeder up there, a zombificator with, of course, one of these guys, a drowned with a trident, because it's a much better method than a zombie, and 40 workstations for villagers. I have not filled them up all yet. I probably don't need the farmers anymore. I still have these guys to sell them iron, even though I don't need to trade for my emeralds. I have most books, but I'm still missing a few books. My biggest problem is the protection book. I only have this one, and I just cannot get a better protection book. I have zombified several hundred villagers to try to get a better protection book, and I just can't get it. There are a few other books missing, and that's why I want to build a much bigger villager trading hall in the future. On this side we have stonemasons because quartz. I'm using a lot of quartz in my base and I need these guys to give me quartz. From the villager trading hall we can go to this place. I will not go underground to show you what it is, but it is just a slime chunk with a very basic slime farm. And that's also something that I definitely need to solve in the future and to build a much bigger slime farm. This one is, well, not very productive and it's also not loaded all the time, so I'm having issues with slime, and the slime farm is something I will definitely target very soon in this world. There will be a big perimeter and there will be many slime chunks all working at the same time. This one is also connected to an autocrafter just to solve the storage problem. This massive building here is my own design of a nether tree farm. I do now believe that even though when I built it I said it wasn't bone meal positive, I do believe I can make it bone meal positive because at the time I didn't know that I could compost shroomlights, but if I compost the shroomlights, I believe I can make this bone meal positive. Doesn't really matter because I have lots and lots of bone meal, but here I'm getting all my woods, and unfortunately I don't have a proper tree farm yet. I only have the nether tree farm or nether mushroom farm or whatever they are called. This produces warped stems, it produces crimson stems and shroomlights. And it works completely automatically, and it has a very convenient mechanism for switching between warped and crimson stems. And by very convenient I mean I need to climb up there and change these blocks to these blocks. So it's not very convenient, but it works. I have already designed a slightly more improved version of this, but I definitely need to work on it a bit more before I replace this one, because I don't want to have a farm with these many exposed hoppers. This is unacceptable. I have learned later I didn't really consider the hopper lag of farms when I built this one. So this is just covered in hoppers, and this is not acceptable. And this farm has a very, very strange building. And this is the first building of this style. And I have decided that all the farm buildings on my island should be built in this style. So this is very hard to explain, but it is an ellipse that is changing its radiuses. It's changing its center a little bit, and it's twisting and turning. And yeah, it is semi-auto-generated, so I play around with how I want to generate the building in creative, then I make a blueprint, because I use the Lightmatica mod to move buildings and farms into survival so I don't make any massive mistakes, and then I built it here. And as you can see, all the buildings except the Sea Pickle Farm are built in this style. Even the villager trading hall, even though it might not seem that it is the same style of building as that one, it is designed exactly the same way, this part too. And my plans for this world definitely include trying to learn other building styles, not just this style which I'm calling weird, because it is kind of weird. But for this island, I have decided to just stick to this and try to perfect this style. And this building here is my auto-crafting concrete factory. Unfortunately, it does not work particularly well. It works decently enough when you're doing small amounts, but it has two catastrophic bugs that makes it pretty much unusable. And one of the biggest bugs is that it has automatic shulker box unloaders for the sand and the gravel at the top here, but unfortunately it spits out the shulker boxes in the wrong hopper sometimes, and that completely jams up the machine and makes it completely unusable. So the massive amounts of concrete I used recently, most of it I crafted manually. And another weird option from the carpet mod that I have enabled is for making sand, and it is done in this building. So the option I'm using is that when you drop anvils on cobblestone, that generates sand. Oh, and I could climb up here. And there is the anvil, there is the bit of cobblestone. This is a cobblestone generator that is pushing the cobblestone under the anvil, and then the anvil crushes it. Let's turn it on to see how it works. This machine has two different modes. It has a mode for making a lot of glass with automatic smelting, and has a sand mode which just makes a lot of sand. And we can turn the machine on just to see how it works. I don't need much more sand right now, so I'm not gonna keep it running, but it basically works like this. We bounce an anvil, it crushes the cobblestone here, and then we retract the sand. It generates about, and I don't remember the exact numbers right now, but it's a little bit more than 5,000 sand per hour. And I made it pretty much as fast as I think is possible with just one anvil. And this should be the last contraption and or farm on this island, unless I forgot something, in which case we will come back to it when I remember. But now let's go visit a nice farm that I have built that is the only thing that isn't connected through my Nether tunnel network. So I didn't just have time to connect it, but it's not too far from my island, so flying here is not a big issue, and I don't need to come here too often anyway, so I don't mind. And it is in this building. This is, since it's not on my main islands, I have attempted a slightly different building style here, and it kind of looks like a bit of a Victorian greenhouse thing, with big steel beams, some chains going on here, lots of bricks, and yes, the stonemasons were very helpful for this. And let's trigger it once to see it in action. I don't know if we will be able to see it easily, but yeah, I can turn it on. It's a farm that is designed around my tethered flying machine concept once again. I like the tethered flying machine concept very much. And as you can see, it is quite long. It's 100 something blocks long, and it is a pumpkin farm. So the flying machines are breaking the pumpkins with hopper minecarts, picking up the pumpkins and dumping them in the storage system. And recently I have actually been using pumpkins a lot as scaffolding, because they're very useful for long scaffoldings, because you can break those scaffoldings with a flying machine and you don't have to do it manually, which is very convenient. So that's why I've been using them. Now, we have covered most of the things on this island and nearby. Let's try to head to slightly more distant infrastructure and look at what I've built there. And I'm gonna use this Nether portal, even though I'm usually using the portal in my base. And this is just to demonstrate something. So this is my, well, Nether hub, not very huge one, but it serves its purpose. But its most important and best feature is this massive hole that I made in the bedrock. So this portal here also goes to my base, and this actually enters straight in the middle of the base. You've probably already seen this portal. It's this one. And I should not walk in this direction and walk into this hole, because this is my zombified piglin trap. What happens here, I try to get a little bit close without getting too close. Imagine that this rocket that I'm gonna throw in is a zombified piglin. There we go. I get a little doorbell and boom. It hurts me even when I'm standing here, and when the zombified piglin falls in, he blows up completely. This is the entrance I usually use to get into my Nether, just so I can end up on the Nether roof and jump down into my Nether hub if necessary. But first, before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the infrastructure around here. This is the first farm I ever built on this server. It's currently non-operational, and I don't think I can repair it because the Nether mob switch is way too close to it, so I cannot load this farm without also loading the mob switch, so it's gonna be permanently disabled, but I'm keeping it around just for nostalgia reasons, because this is the first farm I ever built. It's a hoglin farm, and after I built it in the first episode, I think it was the first episode, maybe it was the second, but I'm pretty sure it was the first, I haven't had any food problems. I'm using golden carrots now because they are easier to get, but a hoglin farm is just way too overpowered. I AFK'd here once at the beginning of this series, and I still have tons of cooked pork chop, and I have even brought some of it back to my base. And it has a warning sign, of course. Let's zoom in on it. Warning, lava, do not be on fire. This is my rule number 1 for this world, is do not be on fire. And there are only 3 farms that can only be reached through the Nether roof. The first one is, well, this is my old gold farm bartering setup, which there used to be a gold farm above us, but I dismantled it. The bartering setup is still here, but it will also be removed eventually. I just need to empty all these chests. It's a lot of work, so I haven't done it yet, so it's staying around, but it is, for all practical purposes, dead other than the storage system that needs to be emptied. My new gold farm is here, and you might recognize this as Gnembom's design, but it's just the spawning platforms that are Gnembom's design. The killing chamber and the looting system is my own design, and yes, I have a certain obsession for piston feed tapes, so it is using a piston feed tape to handle the loot. Just need to turn it on, get my farm sword, and swing away. It is very efficient for what it is, because, well, the only way to make it much faster would be to build it much lower in the world, kill the zombified piglins faster, and probably with portals as well. As you can see, there is no bartering setup under the farm, and that is a mistake, because I originally planned on building the gold farm up here, and I built the bartering setup first, and this is my new bartering setup with piglins. The old one had 2 piglins, and this one has 24, and also a piston feed tape to handle the loot, because of course you need to handle the loot with a piston feed tape. That's the best way to do it. Maybe it isn't, but that's the way I like to handle loot in the Nether. And originally I planned to build the gold farm over this thing, so that's why I built this thing first. And then when I started to spawn-proof the area below here for the gold farm, I realized that the difference between having the gold farm here and the gold farm just over here, as you can see the beacon, it's not far at all. Here, I don't remember the exact numbers, but let's say I needed to spawn-proof 4,000 blocks down here, and where the new bartering setup is, I needed to spawn-proof 40,000. So I'm pretty sure I will take this thing, dismantle it, and rebuild it under the gold farm, because I have found a relatively efficient way of catching the piglins and getting them into the farm. No big deal to dismantle it and rebuild it. Another farm that is only reachable through the nether roof I can find by following the ghast fireballs on the ground, and it should be somewhere here. Here are more ghast fireballs, and yes, it is a scream farm. I'm sorry, it's a ghast farm. Unfortunately, I had to move, because of the mob switch, I had to move the AFK spot to here, and I can no longer hear the screams, which is a little bit unfortunate. You want to hear the ghasts scream. And I have a theory of certain farms. Certain farms you only build to take revenge on the mobs that caused you so much trouble while you were building the farm. So for example, a ghast farm is a perfect example of this, because when I was building this, I was just swarmed by ghasts. Half of this farm below me was blown up while it was being built. I had to rebuild it, and the ghast kept shooting me and spawning. It was absolute madness. Another farm of that type is definitely the Guardian farm. The Guardian farm was also a revenge farm. I was so satisfied to see millions of Guardians get killed because of the trouble they gave me when I was building the Guardian farm. And the third one of this type will be a slime farm, because, well, we'll get to this when I will show you my witch hut perimeter, because the slimes there were absolutely a nightmare. But this farm here provides me with ghast tears and is also a very good gunpowder farm. So this is where I'm getting my gunpowder now, and it is also why I don't need any creeper farm or hostile mob farm. Now, let's jump down this hole and see what we have down here. So this is the hub of my nether tunnel network, or maybe the crossroads. And I have tunnels going in all directions. I think in total it's about somewhere between 10 and 20,000 blocks of tunnels. I'm not exactly sure. I've been expanding them over quite a long period of time, and I'm trying to pick which one we should visit first. Let's go here first, because this is the simpler of the tunnels. So the tunnels are following the exact same design pattern all over the nether. They look exactly the same. There's nothing really special about them, except this one. This is a tunnel where I try to have a little bit of fun. So it's another data pack I have on my server. It is the statues book, which allows you to change armor stands. And yeah, I just played around a little bit with the armor stands here and make them look a little bit like drowns. All of them have tridents. All of these tridents are enchanted, because why wouldn't you? And yeah, I have a lot of drowned heads. And the reason why I have a lot of drowned heads is just behind this portal. Here, we're entering my drowned farm. Once again, we have a special sword, because you want a good sword for the specific mob you're farming, and I have a big traffic jam here. This is a very productive farm. I'm getting, I don't remember now how many, but the tridents for those statues there didn't take a long time at all. I mostly just wanted a few tridents, and I wanted a few nautilus shells so I could build a few conduits, but yeah, I just got 2 tridents. This was empty a while ago. It's also a decent gold farm and a fantastic head farm. I might actually, just for fun, I might spawn-proof an area using drowned heads, because I'm getting so many of them. But yeah, it's a nice drowned farm. It's not exactly my own design. It was mostly an improvised design from first principles of how to build a farm, but I'm sure other peoples have done pretty much exactly the same. We are in the middle of a river biome, by the way. This is not in an ocean, of course. It is in a river because drowned farms are the most efficient in rivers. Now, coming out of this tunnel, we just go around this corner here and this corner here, and we should be arriving to, well, some staircase in the tunnel. And unless you've seen my latest stream, you have no idea what this is, because this is completely new. And this connects to my Squid Farm. So this is the loot system of the Squid Farm. I'm using a portal-based Squid Farm. I have the entrance to the AFK spot for the Squid Farm right here. And just for reference, let's look into this chest. This chest is about this full. Let's see how the Squid Farm behaves, because it is equally crazy. This is the AFK spot for the Squid Farm. I stand here for a few seconds, but the way it works is also in a river. I try to optimize the amount of spawning spaces. The squids spawn and pretty much immediately fall into portals. And then I process the loot on the other side. I have been now in this spot for maybe 10-15 seconds. Let's see, go fast to the Nether and see what happens. As you can see, there is a traffic jam of squid just suffocating on hoppers that are picking up their loot. The rates of this farm are just insane. And I need to do something about the squid in the portal. Yes, I know. I will try to solve it either by update suppression to just get rid of the bottom layer of the portal, or maybe there is some other way of forcing the squids out of the portal. Probably just armor stands in the portal frame. It should be possible. But yeah, a couple of stacks, I think. Maybe just one stack, because it wasn't a long time. But this thing produces about, I would say, somewhere between 10 and 15,000 ink sacks per hour when I'm AFKing in it. So I have no problems getting black dye. Now, continuing down this tunnel, it's not too far to this portal, which is the end station for this line of the tunnel network. And here we go to the end. I have some infrastructure. I was actually initially debating with myself to not show you this part of the infrastructure, because it is the most horrifyingly ugly structure I have ever built. And it started as a, let's say, a cross or a crossroads of platforms going to the right spots where I have the dispensers, because the dispensers here are for dispensing TNT on top of the crystals, so that the dragon fight can go a little bit faster, so I don't have to shoot the crystals manually. The initial structure I built didn't work, and over many attempts I was changing it so that the dragon would have more space in the middle, because apparently the dragon tries to spawn or attack a solid block somewhere near. I don't exactly know how it's supposed to work, but I had to basically move out the structure further and further to the sides just so the dragon wouldn't destroy it every time. And now it's relatively reliable. It still has one problem, but let's not talk about that. Now, if we head straight east from this portal, and I'm gonna try to do my best to not fly into the void, and for that I'm gonna use to show chunk borders. We just need to fly straight east from here, and we will run into a very important farm. And it is, among other things, made by manipulating end portals or gateways. I'm not exactly sure what they're called. I think they might be called end gateways. And it is my Wither Rose farm. So I manipulated 3 of the end gateways so they would generate straight in the middle over the void. Maybe a little bit in the distance you can see that there are a little bit of end islands showing, but we are a long way away from any blocks that are spawnable. And this is the perfect place to build a Wither Rose farm. So this is a Wither that is shooting Endermen, and the Wither, we keep its focus by using a chicken. I don't want to fly too close to get the attention of the Wither, and I'm usually not staying up here for very long in case some accident happens, but this farm has been, this far, the only reliable Wither Rose farm that I have ever built. And it's thanks to the invulnerable end crystal, which we stole from the end islands, and the chicken, and yeah, correct placement of everything. It is a pretty good farm, and I think I made an Enderman angry, because they're usually not making that noise here. Let's get out of here in case some accident happens, and I don't want those accidents to happen. It is perfectly unload safe, you don't need to do any magic to load it or unload it, you can just fly back and forth to this farm, and it's been stable. Alright, we are back here. We have visited everything in the west tunnel. Let's do the north tunnel. And like I mentioned before, all the tunnels are the same. There is not much exciting going on here. And let's jump into the first tunnel we find here. And this here is my Kelp Farm. Since I have auto-crafting in my world, a kelp farm is a very viable fuel source because the kelp can get into these smokers. I smelt it into dried kelp, and then I autocraft dried kelp blocks that provide the fuel for the smelters. And I have about 50% surplus of dried kelp blocks, and yeah, we have lots of them here. The future plan for this area is to build a super smelter, an actual massive super smelter here, in the case I ever need to smelt a large amount of things, but I have not designed one yet. This is a relatively recent addition to my farms. Going further down the tunnels, we turn right here, and we arrive at my color area. The color area is where I have a big cactus farm and 2 flower farms. So this is a flower forest biome, both here and here. And I'll be honest, that farm was a mistake because I didn't really plan it correctly, but this one is perfect. This one provides me with blue flowers, and that one provides me, well, with flowers I don't need. The flower farms are my own design. It's a little bit crazy design, but I do believe it's one of the faster flower farm designs, and yeah, it's a piston feed tape. So let's turn it on to see how it works. It's just a piston feed tape that is pushing around a lot of grass blocks, and then there is a dispenser that dispenses bone meal into the grass that makes the flowers grow, and the moving grass blocks break the flowers, and then the 2 fences that are passing here under the flowers make the flowers fall down and pushes everything into this little water stream where I can pick things up. Originally I had a plan for a loot system that would connect all the farms in this area, but it's a bit pointless because this is way too productive and would require too many filters. So right now if I need any blue dye, I just come here, pick the flowers up, and you've seen for how long I've been running this farm, and yeah, that's a little bit over 2 stacks in a few seconds. So this is a very fast farm, and this is all the blue dye that I ever need. And like I said, this one doesn't really provide me with any flowers that I want because I built it in the incorrect place, even though I did correctly plan to have a special kind of flower here, but I built it wrong. This is a cactus farm. This produces enough cactus to be smelted by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 furnaces. This feeds the 6 furnaces pretty much continuously. And just to have fuel for the furnaces, we have a bamboo farm that is currently actually harvesting. And the bamboo farm is also a tethered flying machine. We can't really see the mass of repeaters here, but there are repeaters on the side here which are running the tethered flying machine back and forth, and there are minecarts picking up the bamboo, which is perfectly calculated to be enough to feed the furnaces with fuel with pretty much no extra, maybe a little bit, but it's quite well balanced. Continuing down the tunnel here, we're gonna soon arrive to a right turn. And here we're visiting one of my best farms. And it has a very awkward way to access it, but it is a wither skeleton farm. So the reason why I had the Wither Rose farm, well, not just the only reason, but one of the biggest reasons is to build this thing. This thing is absolutely glorious. I don't remember the exact rate of skulls I'm getting, but maybe 20 per minute, maybe 15 per minute, something like that. It is extremely productive. And it's not just very productive for with the skeleton farms, which everybody loves because they give us beacons. Because this farm is also doing autocrafting, but it is autocrafting one thing here, bone blocks, and another thing here, blocks of coal. And I have stolen the blocks of coal from this chest, but there's plenty. This gives us a huge amount of coal blocks, and the amount of bone blocks is just insane. And the autocrafting system here cannot keep up with the number of bones that are being thrown at it. I don't remember the exact details, but I think it's somewhere around 15,000 bone blocks per hour that we managed to do, but we are probably throwing away around half of the bones that with the skeletons are dropping. This is fantastically productive. It's my own design. It's a pretty standard design of the spawning platforms and the piglins, and it could be actually improved quite a lot, but the loot system is my own design and pretty unique, and of course using a piston feed tape. Because, hello, my name is Piston Feed Tape. How are you doing? I'm using piston feed tapes, because you would, wouldn't you? This area here still needs a little bit decoration, especially on the walls, and also I need to do something about this hole, because this hole is just dangerous, and it's the result of me going a little bit insane on stream, and rather than clearing this manually, which we started here on a stream, people talked me into making a TNT duping bomber, and well, we made a kind of a little bit too big hole and destroyed a lot of things here, which I had to rebuild the wall here. But some decoration will probably be necessary here in the future. And the entire area around the Wither Skeleton Farm is spawn-proofed with white carpets, because I thought it would be funny to make the Nether look like a snowy landscape. And I have fire tick off, so this is not a big problem for me. I can have the carpets and they will not burn. As you can see here, this would normally burn, but I have fire tick off. And now we're continuing down this tunnel, and this is the longest tunnel, and one of the first I made. It's a little bit over 3,500 blocks long in total, because that's the nearest double blaze spawner that I found. And yes, this tunnel goes to a blaze farm. And once again, some people might be surprised to see this, because I've been complaining about not having any stairs down to my blaze farm for a long time, and I finished this in the live stream just before starting recording this episode. So this is the entrance to my blaze farm. Double blaze spawner. And the blaze farm is a little bit slow to get going, because the blazes fall down into the lava, and the lava is pushing them through the lava streams down into the killing chamber. But once it gets going, we're getting about 2,000 blaze rods per hour. It's not the perfect killing chamber design, because, well, they are floating up, and I don't really understand why. I think it has something to do with me damaging them. But once we get a good traffic jam in the channels here, where the blazes are pushing each other, and there are blazes on top here pushing the ones down here, it works just fine. And yeah, 2,000 blaze rods per hour, it's perfectly good enough. Now to the eastern tunnel. There isn't really that much here. There is the Guardian Farm, which I've already shown you. But this is the Nether access to the Guardian Farm, also a relatively recent addition, and I don't think I've ever shown it in the video because it wasn't really interesting enough. And here we end up in my map area, or maybe I should call it the warning sign area. So this is where I make all the maps that contain my warning signs. This is the latest. As you can see, it's the break glass in case of flight emergency map. I never removed this black triangle here. In the middle, I just clear it with water buckets. But to remove the text, I have erasers. That is just a flying machine with pistons that are picking up the carpets, and that breaks them. And I have all my carpets here in case I need any colors. Unfortunately, I do not have a wool farm right now, so I might be stuck with the colors I have right now, but I do have a plan for a very, very crazy over-the-top wool farm, which I hope to start building relatively soon. And now we're visiting the last branch of the tunnel network. The first turn goes into this area. And here I have two portals. One of them is going to a pillager outpost. So I go through this portal here. I try to find a captain. And there is nothing fancy going on here. I'm just looking for a captain manually. And there we have one captain. Let's shoot him to get the bad omen effect. And now we have bad omen. We can go back through this portal into this portal here, which has a lot of heads. And this leads us to the raid farm. In the raid farm, I just need to step in here with the bad omen effect and basically swing my sword for as long as I want, and the raids are gonna keep coming back because of the timing of the machine. I will keep getting the bad omen effect. And this is a raid farm which spawns a whole raid at the same time and then waits enough time to let them fall down so I can get the bad omen effect without any manipulation of the village below, which makes it work all the time, but it's not particularly fast. I want to figure out my own design at some point. This is not my own design. But this is good enough, gives me enough emeralds for all my trading needs and all the other stuff that the farm gives as well, especially heads. So I just stand here, whack away, and eventually I will get the bad omen effect. There we go, and a new raid has started. And this farm gives us banners in case we ever need them, lots of pillager heads, lots of evoker heads, and even more vindicator heads, and I have even found occasional witch heads. I'm pretty sure I have moved all of them back into my base, so they are not here, but they do exist. They're quite rare. I have only gotten 7 this far. And here we just have shulker box loaders for all the loot, which is emeralds, redstone, gunpowder, glowstone, sticks, glass bottles, and spider eyes, so the standard witch loot, and then all kinds of other junk, which happens to be sugar, even more banners, and all kinds of junk like this. This is where I'm getting my totems of undying, and that actually reminds me, I need to refill my stock of totems of undying, because I'm a noob. I keep dying all the time. All these totems here are at least one time I should have died but didn't, thanks to this farm. Now, continuing further down this tunnel, on the right here is my mining area. There's nothing interesting going on there. Before I did the anvil sand generators, I had a lot of sand mining going on here, but right now it is pretty much just terracotta that I get there, and sometimes large amounts of stone if I need to. The area is completely destroyed. There's nothing interesting to see there. And then, as a grand finale, we come to my best area. It's once again quite a long tunnel, but it's definitely worth it. Here we enter my double witch hut perimeter. And yes, I should have kept on going and generating better seeds until I got a quad witch hut, but I couldn't be bothered to wait anymore, so I settled for a double witch hut. But it's still a nice perimeter here with... yeah. You can see where all the sea lanterns went, what that I was talking about in the Guardian farm. This was about 50 shulker boxes of sea lanterns, and I lost about 20 shulker boxes to various, well, mistakes and accidents. You can see it in the episode where I did this. And there is also a fantastic wall, which I finished just in the previous episode. This was a wall automatically printed by a machine. The machine was picking which blocks of concrete powder would be dropped, and an AFK player was putting the blocks down. And fortunately, we are soon reaching night, because this place looks absolutely glorious at night. The machine up here, by the way, is the start of my redstone factory, but I don't like it being placed here, and I will be probably moving it back to the floor again. But this entire wall of about 90,000 blocks has been placed by a machine, and I'm not going to point out the error. If you know, you know. If you don't know, maybe you'll spot it, maybe you won't. It is a very simple pattern, it's a very silly pattern, but I'm not very artistic, and this is the best I could come up with on the time I had, and I think it looks good. The next perimeter that I'm already planning is going to be bigger than this. This is about 300 by 300 blocks, maybe slightly bigger. The next one will be probably much bigger, and I have already started a design for a much better wall printer that will generate a good looking or decent looking pattern on the entire wall that will not repeat, because this pattern is just 10 by 16 completely repeating, and the next one will hopefully be at least 300 by 64, if not bigger. And the farms here are 2 witch farms, my own design. It's a little bit silly, it's unnecessarily complex, and it makes it actually slower than the farm that I should have built instead, which is just a standard shifting floor design. This is a shifting floor design, but it's done by piston feed tapes that are running continuously and soul sand that makes the witches fall through the floor. And it is unnecessarily complex, but it's my design, I like it, it's funny, and it's good enough. And on that note, that should be it. I think I have covered everything. And the good enough is a little bit important to me, because sometimes I do build my farms that are just good enough. Sometimes I try to go completely over the top, but this far, I have built most of the farms just for my needs. I want to go slightly over the top in the future. I guess the Wither Skeleton farm is already way over the top. I will never need that many Wither Skeleton skulls, and I will never need that many bone blocks, or for that matter, coal blocks. But I want to expand this world with even crazier contraptions, get into building much more than I have this far. This far I have been mostly technical, I guess. Maybe people sometimes complaining that I'm doing too much landscaping and removing mycelium on video, which I guess it's true, but it's also a thing that I want to learn, I want to figure out. I've only been playing Minecraft for slightly a bit over a year. I'm still learning a lot of things. I'm still not particularly good at redstone, even though some people claim that I am, but I don't think I am. There is so much more to learn. I'm not particularly good at flying machines, want to learn that. I want to improve my storage system. I want to build bigger farms, more fun farms, discover even more what we can do in this world and many others after it. But that will be it from me today. And my usual announcement that comes at this time, there will be a live stream. And if everything goes right and I set up this premiere of this video the way I wanted to, the live stream is gonna start, well, in about 5 minutes from now. If you're watching the premiere, if you're watching this afterwards, sorry, it's already started. It's on twitch.tv/Borkon_live. It's supposed to start at 6 o'clock in the evening UTC or 7 o'clock in the evening Central European time. I hope to see you there, and if not, I'll see you in the future. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.